historic opportunity to debate our Save Corringham Greenbelt petition, giving a direct community voice to the Council. We would like the Council to advise the Planning Committee to reject the applications to build on the Greenbelt north and south of South End Road in Corringham. The application should be rejected because it's Greenbelt land. The National Planning Policy Framework states that local authorities should regard building in the Greenbelt as inappropriate, and the Council's own core strategy did not deem it necessary to build on it. The local government minister in 2013 stated, and I quote, "The Secretary of State wishes to make clear that in considering planning applications, he considers that the single issue of unmet demand, whether for housing or traveller site, is unlikely to outweigh harm to the Greenbelt." The applications should be rejected because the Council has already identified many brownfield sites in thorough development. Developers want Greenbelt for cheapness and greater profitability. The applications should be rejected because the infrastructure is not able to sustain, at a conservative estimate, a more than 20% increase in the local population. Overcrowding will affect all the community. Take the road situation. Already, residents of the South End Road complain of the difficulty of getting onto the main road. There are a limited number of entrances and exits to the Corringham and Stanford Hope area, all linking to the A13. Whenever there is a problem on the A13, there is a backwash onto the local roads regularly. You'll recall the 3-hour traffic hold-up just last December. This even before the container port has become fully operational. And there is the nightmare of another Dartford crossing and a possible link to Candy. We want the applications rejected because our local hospital and doctor surgeries are already under pressure. The increasing population will mean further delays in waiting times. Just last week, there were cars queuing out of Basildon Hospital down the hill to 5 Bells roundabout by the A13 because of a lack of parking space within the hospital. The parking in Corringham, as residents know, is already dire. Proposed development will only worsen matters. A 20% increase in population, but no local full-time police station, ambulance or fire services. We all know response and attendance times are crucial. The proposals made by the developers are laughable and cosmetic and show areas of lack of local knowledge. They're not going to build a dual carriageway on the Lambert Hill Road. They cannot increase the parking spaces in the Corringham Stanford area. They cannot increase the local hospital's facilities. The flooding that local residents see will be made worse by the concreting over of the Greenbelt area. In answer to a question at the developers' exhibition, a representative replied, "We're not a charity." Absolutely correct. The developers hear the sound of money and profits. The council, we hope, will listen to the voice of the voters who you represent. The developers want to grab the Greenbelt. We residents are not fooled by the submission of 2 separate applications for the area. They hope to get at least half a loaf, then come back for the rest later, having set a precedent. We hope the council will not be deceived by this tactic. Developers want to gobble the Greenbelt. We want to preserve it now and for future generations. So we would like the council to advise, recommend and urge the planning committee, which has the legal authority on these matters, to reject both applications. Thank you for listening, and thanks to all those who signed the petition and those who collected the signatures. Thank you again.
Greenbelt Group, we often see many examples of apathy when it comes to engagement with the local authority. They've done an absolutely terrific job. I'm especially proud that this does form part of my homestead seat, and this truly is local residents, some who won't be directly personally affected by the proposals, coming together to support their fellow neighbours. I'm extremely proud of this, So I thank both Mr Sandu and the power behind the throne, Mrs Sandu, who is up there somewhere. Madam Deputy Mayor, myself and my colleagues, Councillor Tolson and Councillor McPherson, have always objected to infill and greenbelt applications in the homesteads, and I'm proud to say that the Planning Committee and Thurrock Council have always made very, very clear decisions that items that do not form part of our core strategy are not supported here. The Planning Committee has always largely supported my ward in this regard. So in relation to greenbelt building does not form part of the core strategy, I think it's incumbent upon us to show that we support the policies that we have voted for and very clearly and robustly support them in public. We've got a long history in the local authority of saying we need to create the houses to create the jobs. Now we are creating the jobs, DP World, Lakeside, many, many examples, and yes, we must build housing. There is no doubt that to fuel a local economy, you need to house workers. Otherwise, the people really of my generation will not be able to live in a local area and take the opportunities that local area should offer them. However, building in Greenbelt, in my mind, isn't the correct thing to do. We designate brownfield for one simple reason. Brownfield is an area of sustainable development. If we start permitting greenfield development, on one hand, we will have the erosion of green belt, which is bad enough in its own case, but on the other, we're also going to have preservation of brownfield. Now, who in their right mind wants to preserve brownfield land? So yes, we need to create homes. I've seen one of my constituents who's written to me on any greenbelt issue who doesn't understand this concept, but we've signed off a core strategy saying very clearly how we're going to create the homes to support the local economy. I think we need to hold faith with this, and that would be my plea. Obviously, it wouldn't be right for me to judge an application where I haven't yet seen all the details or direct the planning committee. Obviously, as a substitute member, I won't actually be a part of this item. I won't sit on this item, but I'm extremely proud of my local community this evening, and extremely proud to say that I'm an unashamed supporter of the Greenbelt.
We have to use Greenbelt for the betterment of the environment, but this land is also not included in our development plan. Now, this development plan actually took years to, sorry I keep using the word develop, to develop. This plan went through various consultations, through various committees. It isn't 1 or 2 pages, it's a document a couple of inches thick, and it's made up of several sectors. And at no point did somebody bring forward an idea so as it could be properly debated, let's build on that land. The debate should have been had at that point, not now, after that plan is in place. If we are actually going to ignore our own development plan, I would ask the question, why on earth did we waste the time and the money that that plan cost us if at the first instant we're just going to throw it in the bin? We have a development plan for the Thurrock and we should stick to it.
East Tilbury, the same developer, Corringham, come to the Barterfield, wanted to build 300 houses. Greenbelt again, we fought it, the council rejected it, but you have to go to the next stage. The one you're fighting is Mr Pickles, because that is your major problem. I feel sure that most of the councillors here and residents don't want this, but Mr Pickles is the man you're going to fight, which will be an appeal. Thank you.
I remember, it must be about a year ago, someone will probably correct me on that, the last time we had a major petition in excess of 1,500 signatures around a large development. That one was related to the old Thurrock tax site, Woodview. And again, according to the council's petition scheme, those people who worked hard to get that petition together felt they had the right to have all the issues that that development brought up debated in public, in full council, with all of the councillors present. But they were told, and we were told, that it couldn't be done. The legal challenges were too difficult, it had to go to planning committee, and to be honest, it felt like it was making a mockery of the whole petition scheme that this council has. In other words, you can have a debate at council if you get 1,500 signatures, so long as it's not about anything important that's likely to concern a large number of people, which made the whole thing crazy. A lot of us have worked very hard since then to make sure we didn't have a repeat of that. The legal team have worked hard to make sure that we have the right guidance. Those of us who sit on the Constitution Working Group have worked hard to make sure we get the petition scheme right. And the result is tonight is that we are at last doing the right thing. People have got together about an issue of major local concern, and we are now debating it in public, in full council, but we are very, very clear that the Planning Committee remains the decision-making body, but I sincerely hope that they will take the views of this council that are expressed tonight into account, just as the Planning Committee should always take representations from local representatives and local leaders into account. I have the privilege of sitting on that committee. That means that I get a vote, which isn't something I take lightly. It also means that I can't predetermine myself, so I'm not really able to go into the details of this application tonight. However, I will talk a little bit about Greenbelt and Thurrock's strategy on Greenbelt. Greenbelt serves important purposes. It stops towns from sprawling wider and wider. It stops towns from coalescing to turn our area from an area of distinctive communities into one kind of developed blob. And the vital thing that Greenbelt does in Thurrock, which it perhaps doesn't do in other areas, is it is the engine behind the whole of our regeneration strategy. We want to see housing and industry moving on to the brownfield post-industrial sites that are littered right across Thurrock. That is the heart of our local development framework, it's the heart of our strategy, and protecting Greenbelt is an essential tool on that. Because if we allow Greenbelt sites to go ahead that are contrary to our strategic plans, it means we will not get the regeneration on brownfield sites that is so central to those plans. None of those things prejudice the judgment I will make on this particular site, but they do set the context. And the reality is that this council and its planning committee are at the best when they defend the plans that we have put in place at the strategic level. When we make it very clear that Thurrock is open for business and it is open for development, provided that that's in line with the strategic plans that we have set. That's the context of this, and that's the thing that I hope the Planning Committee will take into account when it makes its deliberations on this. Thank you.
Southland Road, Corringham. Today I was visiting Gabriel School, and knowing that we were talking about this tonight, I just took the opportunity to just walk around for a little while and have a look. And I can quite clearly see why this is a really, really attractive site to local developers, to developers. I can see what's in it for them. But it is one of the roles of the local authority to put together that land use plan that determines how the borough will develop and will grow over the next 2 decades. And we have taken an enormous amount of time and effort in putting that document together. One of the core strengths of that document is that we do want to protect, wherever possible, the green belt in Thurrock. That is why we decided not to put this land, the land that's been discussed, forward for development. It doesn't mean, of course, through the development framework, that we didn't put any green belt release forward. We did, where appropriate. For instance, Arena Essex, which most people wouldn't recognise as being part of the green belt, we, cross-party, unanimously felt might be appropriate for some housing. So it's not a matter of saying no, no, never. It's saying yes, we're appropriate, and no, we're not appropriate. Just because, however, we have said that this land shouldn't be taken forward for housing, it doesn't prevent developers from chancing their arm. That's what developers do. That's why the law says that if you can demonstrate very special circumstances to allow a development in the green belt, then the planning committee can take a decision to allow. I, frankly, failed to see what the very special circumstances would be in this instance. Councillor Anderson quite rightly points out that as a member of the planning committee, and hoping to stay a member of the planning committee, he mustn't predetermine his position. I'm not a member of the planning committee. I'm not bound by any such things, and I say that this is a development which should not be allowed and should not go ahead. I do, however, sound a note of caution, echoing what Councillor Perkins has said. This council's planning committee can make a local determination. If it's a greenbelt release, however, there is the right of appeal, and we have to just hope that Eric Pickles or his successor feels the same way as we do, were we to say no.